What if I told you that there is a good chance that you would confess a crime you did not commit, in a matter of hours after intense professional interrogation? For instance, more than 25% of wrongful conviction victims who were later exonerated by DNA evidence originally made a false confession to police. Take example of the New York Central Park jogger case, a tale that shook New York City to its core. It all began in 1989, when a female jogger was brutally attacked and raped in Central Park, causing outrage and panic throughout the city. Police were under immense pressure to find the perpetrators, and soon focused their attention on 5 black youths who had been seen in the park that same evening. Kevin Richardson, Andrew McRae, Yusuf Salaam, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise, all between the ages of 14 to 16, were arrested for the crime and interrogated by the police. What followed was a chilling display of police pressure and coercion, as 4 of the boys eventually gave in and admitted to their involvement in the crime, even implicating their peers in the process. However, the accounts they provided were riddled with inconsistencies, and no DNA evidence matched any of the boys. It was later revealed that the boys had been coerced into giving false confessions, leading to a shocking miscarriage of justice that saw 5 innocent youths suffer the consequences of heinous crime they did not commit. You are probably thinking to yourself, I would never succumb to that kind of pressure. Well, maybe if you have solid grounding in psychology and strong character. But the question is, do you have it? Reid method. Most widely used method of interrogation by police is the Reid method, designed to elicit confessions from criminal suspects. Developed in the 1940s by Reid, a former police officer, the method involves a systematic approach to questioning that aims to identify deceptive behavior and pressure the suspect into admitting to the crime. Here is a step-by-step guide of using the method for beginner. Confront the suspect with evidence. Start by confronting the suspect with evidence that links them to the crime. This evidence should be strong and convincing, and it doesn't have to be real. Yeah, that's right. It is legal in US and many other countries to do interrogation with false evidence. Develop a theme. Develop a theme that explains why the suspect committed a crime. The theme should be based on the suspect's personality, history, and motives. Interrupt denials. Interrupt the suspect's denials by using tactics such as minimizing the crime, blaming others, or justifying the behavior. Overcome objections. Overcome any objections that the suspect may have to the theme by using empathy, understanding, or appealing to their conscience. Engage the suspect. Engage the suspect in conversation and ask open-ended questions to encourage them to talk about the crime. Confession. Once the suspect begins to talk about the crime, encourage them to provide a detailed confession. This may involve asking them to sign a written statement or making a video recording of their confession. At the core of the Reid method is the idea that human behavior is predictable and that by identifying patterns of behavior, interrogators can distinguish between truthful and deceptive statements. Interrogators are trained to use a range of tactics to build rapport with the suspect, establish a sense of authority, and create a sense of urgency that will make the suspect more likely to confess. However, the Reid method has been criticized by some for being too aggressive and for leading to false confessions. In particular, critics argue that the method can be particularly effective with vulnerable suspects such as juveniles or people with intellectual disabilities, who may be more likely to succumb to pressure and confess to crime they did not commit. Some jurisdictions have moved away from the Reid method in recent years, adopting more collaborative and less confrontal approaches to interrogation. However, the method remains in widespread use, and its proponents argue that when used correctly, it can be a powerful tool for identifying and prosecuting criminals. Menticide. I'd like to focus now on more gruesome aspect of interrogation, for example one used on prisoners of war. There is an interesting book called The Rape of the Mind, by Dutch psychoanalyst Joost Merlo. This book received wide attention in part because it dealt with totalitarian applications of brainwashing techniques during the Korean War. It explains how scientific brainwashing is done and argues that hardly anyone can resist such. I highly recommend the book. Merleau focuses on mental coercion and torture at the individual level, discussing the techniques used to yield false confessions from prisoners of war. Under the continual strain of these techniques, everyone's limit can be reached. The idea we can endure torture is a delusion. Menticide is a gradual process of reduction of the human mind to mental submission through various techniques. The process typically involves 4 broad stages, as outlined by psychiatrist Just Merleau. The first stage, artificial breakdown and deconditioning, is designed to weaken the prisoner's ego through a variety of means, such as physical threats, humiliation, loneliness, isolation, and embarrassment. The aim is to break down the prisoner's sense of self and create a state of vulnerability. In the second stage, the prisoner is subjected to positive identification with the enemy, often resulting in a sudden and unconscious surrender. The prisoner loses conscious control and becomes more susceptible to the captor's demands. Merleau describes this stage as menticidal hypnosis, induced by a combination of fear, time, and continuous pressure. The third stage involves reconditioning, a process of systematic indoctrination aimed at instilling the captor's beliefs or ideology into the prisoner's mind. The victim is helped to rationalize their new way of thinking, making it easier for the captor to control their behavior. Finally, the fourth stage is liberation. The hypnotic spell is broken, but this often comes with the spells of crying, depression, and guilt. The prisoner is left with the task of rebuilding their sense of self and coming to terms with the trauma they have experienced. Overall, the process of brainwashing is dark and deeply unsettling practice that has been used to control individuals and groups throughout history. Understanding its mechanisms and effects is crucial to protecting ourselves and others from insidious power. So you find yourself in an interrogation room accused of a crime you didn't commit. What can you do to resist the manipulative tactics used by interrogators? The answer is simple: don't talk. That's right, just stay completely quiet and don't answer any of their questions. It may seem like a difficult task, but it could be the difference between a wrongful conviction and your freedom. You may be thinking, but I need to defend myself, I need to tell them the truth. However, as a police officer would tell you during an arrest, everything you say can and will be used against you. That is absolutely true. Everything you say can potentially harm you. In fact, nothing you say can actually be used to help you. So it's best to stay silent and wait for legal representation.
The reality is there's 2 groups of individuals out there. There are those who are sophisticated enough to understand how the American criminal justice system works. This includes, by the way, every defense attorney, every prosecutor, every police officer, every judge, and all of their children and nieces and nephews. Those people never talk to the police, period. And then there's this other group that waives their right to remain silent and does talk. And that group includes a lot of guilty people and a lot of innocent people, but all they have in common is that they don't know how the system works. But although the police won't think you look guilty, they will pretend that they think that, because they know that's how you think.
While the techniques used by police and the military to manipulate suspects into making false confessions are popular in the United States, several European countries have banned some of these techniques. For example, lying to a suspect about evidence is prohibited in some European countries due to the risk of false confessions and wrongful convictions. It's clear that there is a need for law and psychology to work closely together to fix the problems of false confessions and find more efficient ways of catching the right people. Hopefully, this trend towards more ethical and fair interrogation techniques will spread to other countries, leading to a more just legal system for all.